morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are listening. Thank you so much for making me a part of your day. My name is Lee Parham. You might know me as Lego Lee or Lego Lee 329 from Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Patreon, you name it. I'm all over the internet, and this is the Brickology podcast, the study of small plastic bricks. How are you guys doing? I'm having a great day. I hope you are as well. And I'm really excited because this is the 5th episode of Brickology. We're halfway to 10. We're in full swing with Brickology right now. I want to do a really quick little recap. You might have noticed that I did not make an episode of Brickology last week. I did go to Nashville for a wedding, so I was busy. I have somewhat of an excuse. It's not like the Disney World excuse where I was literally just, having fun by myself. But I do need to make a quick announcement. But before I make the quick announcement, I need to make another quick announcement. I've received a ton of great feedback from you guys about Brickology, and I really appreciate that. If you give me feedback for this show, that is fantastic. A lot of it, most of it, has been very positive, but I have gotten some very good constructive criticism, and I really appreciate that. And one of my friends, really good friend of mine, literally just came out and said, "Lee, your intros are long and clunky and kind of awkward." And I was like, you know what? You're right. I tend to kind of just, not really get to the point very quick and like to tease things. I'm always like, you might be catching on to what I'm saying, even though that's already in the title of the episode and people know what I'm about to say. I'm going to stop doing that. Hopefully, by the time I have, 15 of these episodes out or something, I'm just very natural at this and I have some kind of quickie and fun and snappy intro. Right now, I really don't. And the intro for this episode is not going to be super snappy because I need to kind of preface what I'm about to say. Essentially, I'm going to work on making the intros better. I need to have something easier way of introducing myself and the show without it going on for too long. And I'm not going to just drag things out longer than they need to go. Also, though, the second big announcement is the reason there was no Brickology last week and there won't be one next week is because Brickology is now going to be a bi-weekly podcast. Now, I got some negative feedback to this announcement. I made the announcement on my Instagram earlier this week. People, responded with lots of sad face emojis and all that stuff. Yeah, I know, it sucks. I'm sure if I were a listener to this podcast, I want it to be every week. However, going into this, I did not know how much work one episode of a podcast was going to be. Because, the podcasts are, 45 minutes to an hour long each, which is a lot of recording time. But then I also have to edit that audio. I have to make graphics, thumbnails, and more importantly, I have to write my show notes and scripts, which requires a lot of research. And I'm doing this all by myself. It's just me. I have literally no one else. I'm sure there are other big podcasts out in the world where they have tons of people doing things for them. But in my case, at least for the time being, it's literally just Lego Lee, baby. I'm the only person working on Brickology. So it's a lot of work. And I feel like I was pushing myself too hard to have a new episode every week because Brickology is not the only thing I do for Lego Lee. I make a daily, literally a daily, if not multiple times per day, post on Instagram. Those posts are all very detailed and highly edited, and those take a while. I also make lots of reviews on my YouTube channel. I'm doing a lot of stuff for this account. So doing one of these podcasts every week was just proving to be too much work, and I was overworking myself. And I want to ensure that Brickology is an extremely high quality product. And I don't think it's going to be high quality if I rush out a new episode every week. So by making Brickology bi-weekly, that gives me more time to kind of marinate and focus on that episode and make it as good as possible instead of rushing out the episode instead. So Brickology, unfortunately, it is going to be bi-weekly. That means we still will get either 2 to 3 episodes of Brickology a month, depending on the length of the month. So you're still going to get a lot of me, just not quite as much, but I think it's going to prove to be a very good decision because that means the episodes of Brickology are going to be even better than they were before. Okay, that was a 4-minute long intro. Next week, or in 2 weeks, I promise the intro will be more snappy and much better, but I did need to make that announcement to kind of explain myself. But now, let's dive into this week's topic for Brickology. So here at Brickology, I want to keep things fairly topical, and what's more topical than a brand new movie coming out this weekend? So this weekend, Onward, the newest Disney Pixar film, is being released in theaters. Now, LEGO did not make any sets based off Onward. It's pretty much irrelevant to LEGO, but it is a brand new Pixar film, so I was like, this week's episode of Brickology, I could do LEGO Pixar, but there's a lot of LEGO Pixar stuff. They've made sets, I think, based off at least 5 different Pixar movies. So instead, I decided to do this episode specifically about the first ever LEGO Pixar theme, and that is Toy Story. But before we dive into the history of LEGO Toy Story, let's talk about the history of Toy Story, the franchise itself. And we can't really talk about the history of the Toy Story franchise without talking about the history of the company that made the Toy Story films, and that, of course, is the iconic Pixar. Now, Pixar, I think, has such an interesting and rich history as a company. You know, now Pixar is owned by Disney. They're this big deal. They release a film or two every single year. They're always winning awards and making billions of dollars at the box office. But this film got just about the smallest of starts imaginable, and I think it's super interesting. Now, Pixar, the company as we know it today, was founded in the year 1986 by Edwin Catmull and Alvy Ray Smith. Now, additionally, some funding came from this guy. His name was Steve Jobs. You might have heard of him. He also co-founded this company called Apple in the 80s. So Steve Jobs was actually a majority share owner in Pixar and one of the founding members of this studio, which is crazy to me that not only he founded Apple, which is like the biggest company in the world, but he also helped found one of the biggest animation studios in the world as well. But Pixar, 1986 is when Pixar became its own company, but that's actually not really when Pixar formed. It actually originally started as a computer animation division of another company you might have heard of called Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm, of course, created by George Lucas, makes the Star Wars, Indiana Jones, lots of other great movies. We love Lucasfilm. This is not a Star Wars episode, though, but of course, LEGO Lee's always got to throw in a shameless plug to mention Star Wars at least once in every episode of Brickology, I swear. But in 1979 is when Pixar was made, a computer animation division of Lucasfilm, and then it spun off into its own company 7 years later in 86. Now, their first original short film was released before they even spun off from Lucasfilm. This short film was titled The Adventures of Andre and Wally B. This was released in 1984. Now, a lot of people don't know this is even the first Pixar short film. I personally have not seen it. I was kind of unaware of this film's existence, I'm sorry to say, until I started doing my research for today's episode. But the second Pixar short film, which is the one I originally thought was their first short film and is a very iconic animated short film that came out in 1986, the first year that Pixar spun off from Lucasfilm, is Luxo Jr. Now, you might not recognize that title right off the bat. I don't blame you. You probably haven't seen this, although Luxo Jr. is on Disney Plus, and it's like 1 minute and 30 seconds. So if you have Disney Plus subscription, I would definitely recommend watching this just for the history. But Luxo Jr. is the story of that lamp. And you probably know what I'm talking about now, because Pixar and the lamp are like synonymous. The lamp is literally the mascot of Pixar, and I can't really think of a sound effect that's more iconic for like a movie intro, maybe besides the 20th Century Fox fanfare music, than the Pixar lamp. I'm pretty sure you guys can hear that image, the image of the lamp jumping on top of the ball and squishing it, making the eye in the Pixar intro for all their movies. I mean, it's iconic. It's seriously iconic. So Luxo Jr. is the first Pixar short film as their own company, now that they're no longer part of Lucasfilm, and Luxo Jr. has now become the mascot for Pixar in 1986. Now, Pixar did some short film, some other random things throughout these years. They had that Tin Soldier film, and that guy actually appears in Toy Story 4, but that's kind of besides the point. We're going to skip ahead almost a decade to the year 1995. This is before my time. I wasn't even born yet. But in 1995, Pixar releases the first ever feature-length theatrical 3D animated movie, and it's a little movie called Toy Story. Now, if you look back on the animation of Toy Story here in 2020, it looks pretty archaic and very ugly and weird, and there's just some kind of uncanny valley stuff going on. The animation it doesn't look great now. But this was the first ever completely computer-generated 3D animated film released in theaters, which is crazy. I mean, I think VeggieTales came out in '93. That was a show that's a little bit different. It's not the first ever, like, you know, big 3D animated thing, but for feature films, it is. Toy Story is. It's become, you know, pretty much animation now. We don't really get 2D animation anymore, except for maybe like anime. So 3D animation, this like huge medium that produces tons and tons of films a year, was started with Toy Story all the way back in 1995. So Toy Story is not only important for Pixar, it's just important for film in general. It completely changed the medium. Like, it's a pretty influential film. And of course, it's an iconic and great movie. Now, I could spend the next 3 hours just babbling on about Pixar's history and all the movies and shorts and awards and things they have done. I'm not going to do that because this is not a Pixar episode, it's a Toy Story specific episode. So we skip forward 4 years to the year 1999, and Pixar makes their first ever sequel. Their third film in general. A Bug's Life is the only movie in between Toy Stories 1 and 2, but of course Toy Story 2 is released in 1999. This is one of the first movies I ever saw in theaters. If you listened to the first episode of Brickology a few weeks ago about Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, I mentioned the first movie I ever saw in theaters was Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace, which also came out in the year 99, but then Toy Story 2 was one of the next movies I saw in theaters that year. And Toy Story 2, in my opinion, is the best Toy Story movie. They're all great, but I think it's the best one. It's the most iconic to me, and I have so much nostalgia wrapped around this film. The PlayStation game or the Nintendo 64 Toy Story 2 game, I literally still play that game today on my 64. Love that game. This movie just means a lot to me. I absolutely adore this film. Now, the one additional piece of information about Pixar as a company I need to mention before we talk about Toy Story for the rest of this episode is that Pixar in the year 2006 was purchased by the Walt Disney Company. Now, you know, Disney Pixar is kind of synonymous now. It's been 14 years since this merger. It seems kind of weird that, you know, actually 2006 is when it was purchased, because now it just seems like everything Pixar is Disney related. But 2006 was the year that the first Cars film came out. Disney purchased Pixar for over $7 billion, and all the shares in Pixar became shares in the Walt Disney Company. So that's a very important thing to mention, because Pixar has become more Disneyified since it was purchased. The quality of film has dipped just a little bit. There's been a lot more sequels and stuff, including 2 Toy Story sequels that we're going to talk about in this episode here in just a second. So I wouldn't say Disney ruined Pixar. They still have made some great films, but it definitely made it more commercial than it was. Now, skipping forward to the year 2010, a whole 11 years after Toy Story 2, we finally have a concluding film in the trilogy in Toy Story 3, released in June of 2010. Now, Toy Story 3, when it came out, it broke the opening weekend record for an animated movie, and I believe it became the highest grossing animated movie of all time at the time of its release. I'm pretty sure The Incredibles 2 has broken both of those records since then, but it held those records for a while. It was a big deal. And 2010 is the first year that Lego jumped on the Toy Story game, and we'll elaborate more on that in just a minute. Now, skip forward another 9 years, almost an entire decade, and we got Toy Story 4, which kind of concludes the series. Again, I don't want to get into spoilers because the movie is still fairly new, just in case you haven't gotten a chance to see it, but it kind of concludes the series again. It definitely was an unnecessary and very Disney cash grabby sequel, but they still made a very good film out of it. Now, speaking of good films, the Toy Story series is one of the best reviewed movie series of all time. Every movie in the series has at least a rating of 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, including the first 2 movies both having the elusive 100% approval rating. That's insane. That's wild. I mean, ratings for movies like, some movies getting 75% is considered a very high rating. The fact that all of the Toy Story movies have 98% or higher, literally like an A+ grade for all of them, all four, I mean, that's a lot of movies. That is a ridiculous statistic and so impressive. I actually remember in 2010, Toy Story 3 had 100%, and then some buffoon gave the movie a negative review, and he got absolutely roasted online for that. It was a pretty funny time because, I don't really know how someone could watch Toy Story 3 and be like, wow, that was a bad movie. That just kind of cracks me up. But crazy good reviews for these movies. Toy Stories 3 and 4 have won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature Film. The first two didn't win Oscars simply because there was no award for animated feature film. That award was introduced in 2001, and Shrek was the first winner of that award, actually nearly 2 decades ago. So they have won those awards. The last two movies have also grossed over $1 billion each at the box office. This is a massive movie franchise. There's rides of it at Disney World, which I just went a few weeks ago. I mean, seriously, Toy Story is a humongous franchise that has spawned so much for Disney and Pixar over the years. So it's only logical that it would be heavily merchandised. And it took a while. It took way longer than you might think. But in 2010, Lego finally jumped on the Toy Story bandwagon. Now, I'm sure in the future of Brickology, I will make a Disney-centric episode of this show where I dive deep into the history of all the products Lego has made based off Disney properties in the past. And it's kind of a weird and complicated history, and Lego just really didn't do a ton of Disney stuff before the stuff I'm about to mention, but they did make some weird Duplo sets in the 90s and some random things here and there. But the year 2010 is kind of like the first big year for Lego Disney. Now, I'm not talking about Lego Disney today. I'm talking about Lego Toy Story, so I need to hone in just a bit, but I do need to mention that 2010 is the first big year for Lego Disney. They made the Prince of Persia set, which was a Disney live-action adventure film, and then they made the Toy Story set, and since then, there's been a lot more stuff based off different Disney properties in the future. But 2010 is kind of like the unofficial, it's not the actual birth year of the Lego and Disney partnership, but it's the first year that it really took off the ground, and it's the first time we got Toy Story sets. Now, the first wave of Lego Toy Story sets were released in the winter of 2010. This just so happens to be like the beginning of my channel. I made my YouTube channel in October of 2009, so like I'm currently 12 years old at the time of these sets coming out. I reviewed a lot of these sets on my channel. Those videos are absolutely horrible, but if you go to Lego Lee 329 on YouTube, I'm sure you can look up and find my old Toy Story set reviews. They are laughably bad, but I do have a lot of nostalgia around this theme. It's crazy this theme now is an entire decade old. So the first wave of sets is released in the winter of 2010. Now, this is something Lego has done before, and actually after this theme, is that the new movie, Toy Story 3, was coming out in June of 2010, and I'm sure Lego thought about this strategically. They were like, okay, if we release Toy Story 3 sets, people are probably going to be upset that we don't have sets based off the original Toy Story films. So Lego, very intelligently, decided before the Toy Story 3 sets, they were going to make sets based off the original 2 Toy Story films to kind of preface and lead up to the eventual wave of Toy Story 3 sets. The same thing has happened with themes like The Hobbit. Before the Hobbit sets came out, they made a small little wave of Lord of the Rings sets to kind of be a precursor to the Hobbit sets. I really like that Lego did this. It's great because if we just got Toy Story 3 sets, it would have been kind of awkward. It would have been cool to have Toy Story sets, but it would have made me wish that we had sets based off the original Toy Story films, which mean, more to me because they're older and I actually grew up with them as opposed to Toy Story 3. So luckily, Lego actually did that, and they made an original wave of Toy Story sets. The first wave is kind of a mixed bag because there's some stuff that's based off the quote-unquote expanded universe of Toy Story. There's not really an expanded universe, but there kind of is. And then there's some stuff that's like not really based off specific scenes from the movie, but like scenes and within scenes of the movie. It's hard to explain, that made no sense, but I'll explain it here in just a minute. The first Toy Story set, an $11, not $10, $11 set, kind of a weird price for this set, is the Army Men on Patrol. So Army Men on Patrol included 4 Army Men minifigures. 3 of them were the same and 1 of them was a medic, and they all had different weapons. And this was a very cool set. It was a small $11 set, very, very similar to like a Star Wars battle pack in the type of set that it was. And this set here was the first time LEGO made a semi-realistic war-style helmet piece. Now, I've mentioned in Brickology before that LEGO is so anti-war. They don't want to make any realistic-looking weapons and things of that sort. However, with this set here, they made some very specific war-style pieces, mainly the helmet. Now, the helmet was a very bright green color, of course, to represent the Green Army Men, so it wasn't super realistic, but it's a piece that a lot of LEGO customizers of World War II scenes have used for their mocks in the future, including myself. I actually made a D-Day mock back in the year 2010, and I specifically remember using this piece. Now, these Green Army Men figures have never come in a set after this, besides a small poly bag. Very cool figures. They had a completely custom piece for their like Army Man stand. It's extremely cool, great, very unique minifigures. And the build of this set here was a small kind of Jeep build, and it was a pretty good Jeep build, and it was, you know, kind of, again, a very bright green, but a pretty good design that could definitely easily be modified into something very war-centric. So kind of surprised LEGO even touched this, because LEGO is so anti-war. They don't like making war stuff, but here we are with this very, you know, obviously it's based off Green Army Men toys, but it still kind of, you know, invokes the violence of war in some ways in a very kiddish way, and I'm actually kind of surprised LEGO decided to make this into a set. The next Toy Story set, a $20 set with 92 pieces, bad price, but I think one of the best Toy Story sets that's ever been made, was Woody and Buzz to the Rescue. Now this set here had Woody and Buzz, of course, and it came with the rocket firework that Sid, the villain of Toy Story 1, hooked them both up to, and it of course came with RC car. This RC car is a great design, tons of really cool printed pieces, still holds up today, looks really good, and the reason this set was so expensive is because RC had a pullback motor. I miss pullback motors, man. LEGO hasn't put a pullback motor in a set in years. I love them. They're so much fun. I mean, it's a very gimmicky and kiddie play feature, but especially as a younger kid, I loved pullback motors, and literally I have gone to stores like Target and gotten some pullback motor cars and like raced my friends through the aisles of Target with some pullback motor cars. A little embarrassed to admit that, but it's super fun, and I loved this set. It still holds up well today. The RC car looks fantastic. The minifigures and the rocket, it represents the scene from the first Toy Story movie very well. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant Toy Story set from the first wave in 2010. Now the next 2 sets we have to talk about here are kind of like a weird theme within the theme. It's like a sub-theme of Toy Story, the Construct a Zurg and a Construct a Buzz set. Both these sets here were $25. Construct a Zurg was an exclusive, I think, to either Toys R Us or Walmart. I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember where he was an exclusive to, but both sets were very cool. They were like these brick-built versions of the characters. Now, the Buzz version had a very specialized piece for his head, of course, and a specialized piece for his like dome over his head. Those are some pretty cool pieces. Zurg actually used most of the existing LEGO parts besides the little horn piece on top of his head, and all the pieces were printed. It all looked so good. Really cool. Awesome idea for these sets. I remember the Buzz one was a little bit finicky and fell apart a good bit, which is a little unfortunate, but the Zurg one was absolutely spectacular and still looks really good to this day. And both sets were actually the cheapest sets at the time that included a figure of the iconic Toy Story alien. So very cool sets, great figures, great display pieces, and I really wish I still had both of these built in my collection. And continuing along with the Buzz Lightyear theme that this first wave of Toy Story sets really honed in on, we had Buzz Lightyear Star Command Spaceship, a $30 set. Now this set wasn't really based off the Toy Story movies. You could kind of debate it's based off the first scene of Toy Story 2, 2. What an iconic, amazing first scene to that movie. Or it's also based off of Buzz Lightyear's box that he comes in the first Toy Story, also seen in Toy Story 2 as well. But Brickology says this set here is based off the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command show. First off, I remember watching this show a little bit when I was really young. I loved this show. Great show. I would love to see a Buzz Lightyear or Star Command movie. That'd be awesome. Pixar, please do that. That would be phenomenal. I would love to see Tim Allen and Buzz Lightyear have his own Star Command-centric movie. That's besides the point, though. This was a $30 set, the only set ever that came with a Zurg minifigure, and it was based off the Buzz Lightyear Star Command spaceship, the shape of his box. And my fans on Instagram voted this as the best LEGO Toy Story set of all time. Now, in my opinion, I don't think it's the best set. There's a set I'll mention here in just a minute that I think it's a little bit better, but it's a great set. I have nostalgia for this set. I reviewed this set. Unfortunately, I was a dumb child and I destroyed this set. I might order it again on eBay or something because I love this set and I love that Zurg minifigure. That Zurg minifigure is absolutely phenomenal. And then finally, for the first wave of Toy Story sets, the biggest set, the $50 set of this wave here was Woody's Roundup. Now, Woody's Roundup, of course, is the name of the show that Sheriff Woody is based off of in the Toy Story universe. It's like a 50s styles Western serial type show, and that's what Woody is from. So this set is based off a movie, but it's actually a set based off of a TV show that's in a movie. There's like a bunch of different levels. It's a toy based off a show that's actually a fake show that exists in the universe of a movie. Yeah, that's a lot to take in. I don't have this set. It's the only set from this first wave I didn't get, and I really regret it, man. I really do, because this is an absolutely phenomenal set. Great build, great minifigures. At the time of its release, Jessie and Bullseye were both exclusive, and I really want a Bullseye figure. I don't have one, and I really want one. And this is the only set ever to include the Prospector, Kelsey Grammer's character, Stinky Pete. What a great villain of Toy Story 2. It's a great set, and this is a Western style set, and people love Western stuff. You know, the Lego Lone Ranger, another Disney theme that came out in 2013, was so popular because of all of its Western stylings. People love sets that are based off of Western style things, and this set was really popular, and I really regret buying it to this day, but maybe someday I'll have to do an eBay purchase and just shell out the big bucks to get this set because it's that good of a set. So that's the winter wave. That is the wave of winter Toy Story sets. And then we jump to the summer wave of sets. Now, I actually mentioned in my Clone Wars video last week about the box art change. So there actually was a box art change for these Toy Story sets as well. The winter wave of Toy Story sets, the box art kind of had that iconic Andy's Room wall design where it's, you know, pretty much just like a light sky blue with clouds. That's what the box looked like. The Toy Story 3 sets had a very plain, very plain design. It's pretty much just white with the Toy Story logo, and Lego actually repackaged the sets to fit the Toy Story 3 setting, which is kind of odd. I'm not really entirely sure why they did that because I much prefer the Andy's Room style as opposed to the Toy Story 4 ones, but whatever, it doesn't really matter. Now, the summer wave was mostly sets. All but one of the sets were based off Toy Story 3, but we did get a store exclusive Pizza Planet truck, a set I did get. It was a really big truck to scale with the toys themselves, a big Pizza Planet truck. It was $40. It has Buzz, an Alien, Rex, and Ham, I believe. And this set is the set that I mentioned that I think is the best Lego Toy Story set of all time. This is a fantastic set. It looks great. It still holds up really well today. Great design, really cool shaping, creative use of parts. It even shot freaking pizzas out of the front, which makes no sense, but whatever. It was a fun play feature, especially for me at the time as, you know, a very young person. So a great set, in my opinion, the best set that, again, I was dumb and a child, and I unfortunately destroyed my version of this set, and it's a very expensive set online these days. So I really regret doing that, but it is still an absolutely fabulous set. I love this Pizza Planet truck set, and this was the only set in the summer that wasn't based off Toy Story 3. This was specifically based off the scene featuring the Pizza Planet truck from Toy Story 2. Now, fun fact about the Pizza Planet truck. it's in every Pixar movie. Of course it's in every Toy Story movie, but it's actually in every single Pixar movie. Even the ones that aren't even remotely set in the modern day, like Brave or something, they somehow, some way, always find a way to sneak the Pizza Planet truck into every single Pixar film. Sometimes it's very subtle and hard to see, sometimes it's very obvious, but somehow, some way, they're always sneaking in the Pizza Planet truck, which is an awesome little Easter egg that Pixar is consistently putting in all of their movies. Now, one thing about the Pizza Planet truck, there's some missing characters in this set, because in this scene, there's a lot more characters, like Mr. Potato Head, Slinky Dog, Barbie, characters of that sort. The reason these characters don't appear in any of these Toy Story sets is because they're owned by different toy companies, like Mattel owns Barbie, and Lego and Mattel are rivals. So unfortunately, Lego is not able to have these other licensed characters in the Toy Story set, which kind of sucks, because I would love to see a Slinky Dog minifigure. I would adore to see a Mr. Potato Head figure, but it's a very, very complicated issue of rights. So it makes sense that these figures are not in any of these sets. It would be really cool to see them in the sets, but it's just not going to happen because these companies are not going to cooperate with one another. They are big, big rivals, and it's just not going to happen. Now, let's talk about the sets based off of Toy Story 3. The smallest Toy Story 3 specific set was Lotso's Dump Truck. This was a $20 set that's very loosely, it's not specifically, but loosely inspired off a Tonka truck. It was the cheapest way to get Lotso Huggin' Bear, who was one of the OG Lego Big Figs, really cool looking figure, and it's the only set ever to come with the character Chunk, who, look him up online if you don't know what he looks like, this really odd looking rock monster guy who had a very unique headpiece where he could flip around the expressions on his face. It was super strange, super cool, and very unique. I wish I had this figure. I never got this set. And you also got the character Stretch, who was a squid octopus with a very unique kind of rubbery tentacle piece. So cool little $20 set with some very unique figures. I kind of want this set. It's actually not too expensive online, so maybe one day I will order this set here on eBay. Now, there were two Toy Story 3 sets that were garbage themed. They actually weren't garbage sets. They were garbage sets in terms that they were based off of, actual garbage, but they were both very good sets. Both sets were $50. The first one is the $50 truck, which is actually, I think, one of the best garbage trucks Lego has ever made. It was a similar scale to the Pizza Planet truck, where it just was very large. It was much, much bigger than a normal minifig scale garbage truck should be, but it looks very good. It had good functionality, it had a very good picking up play feature, and it came with some dirty characters. It had Lotso and Jessie covered in trash, and we'll talk more about trash covered characters here in just a second. And it also was the only set ever to come with the character Twitch, and if you're a Lego fan online, you probably know of Just Too Good, who's one of my personal friends. Such a guy and I have been buddies for a long time. Twitch is his all-time favorite Lego minifigure, and it's kind of become the mascot for his channel here. So that's a pretty cool little story about that garbage truck set. But in my opinion, the set that actually means more to me from this very small little garbage unofficial sub-theme of Toy Story is the Trash Compactor set. So the Trash Compactor set actually means something special to me. Here in Brickology, I love sharing little anecdotes about my life and my experiences with Lego, and this Trash Compactor set has a funny story. I actually reviewed this set as my 100th video special review. I thought I was such a big deal, man. I got a $50 Lego set and reviewed it. I was like, this is a huge set. It's $50. It's gonna be my 100th video special. Granted, I was 13, so $50 was a lot of money for me back in that day, but it's just super funny to look back that I reviewed a $50 set as, what should have been a pretty big deal. My 100th video ever was a $50 set review. That's kind of a funny little thing about this set, but it's a $50 set, really cool set, really fun set, tons of good play features with the Trash Compactor. They use a tread piece to make the conveyor belt work, and you also have the claw, which use some very cool pieces that I believe are still exclusive to this set this day. Very cool claw pieces, and it came with some very cool minifigures, Lotso, Woody, Ham, and 2 aliens that were all covered in trash, just like the ones that came with the garbage truck set. Very cool, unique, exclusive minifigures. Now finally, for Toy Story 3 sets, there was the Western Train Chase. This was about a 580-ish piece, $80 set that is based off the opening scene from Toy Story 3. Toy Story has some great opening scenes, man. Seriously, every single Toy Story movie has just an amazing opening scene. And the opening scene of this movie is, kind of going into Andy's imagination. It's this big Western battle, and there's this train. And this train is super cool. It came with Woody, also Bullseye, I think Jesse, and it came with evil Dr. Porkchop, which was just the Ham minifigure with a little bowler hat. And he looks adorable, and I love that minifigure. I wish I had this set. Again, people love kind of Western themed stuff. I did get the Western themed train from the Lone Ranger theme a couple years later, so I do have a Western train, but this is still a very cool set. And one fun thing, the Ham minifigure is so unique. He's just 2 pieces, technically speaking, but Ham in the movie is a piggy bank, and the Lego figure actually functions as a real-life piggy bank. He has a rubber stopper piece on his bottom that you can take out, and you can actually insert coins, Lego coins of course, but coins nonetheless, on the top of him, inside of him, and you can remove them from the bottom with the rubber stopper. The fact that Lego made the Ham minifigure a functioning piggy bank is so spectacular to me. I just absolutely love that. So that's 2010, besides a couple of poly bags that don't really matter. That's all we got, folks. That's all the Toy Story stuff in 2010. And then the theme was discontinued for a long time. Really. I mean, there wasn't a Toy Story theme from 2011 till 2018. It returned in 2019, of course, to coincide with the release of Toy Story 4. Now, there were a couple of small little Toy Story things from Lego in between then. In the year 2016, Lego made a collectible minifigure series based off of Disney. It was the Disney CMF series, and 2 characters they chose for the Disney CMF series were a couple from Toy Story. They chose Buzz Lightyear and the Alien. The Alien had some slight printing updated changes, but for the most part looked like the exact same minifigure. The Buzz figure had major printing upgrades, and they actually changed the way the minifigure looked. Now, the original Buzz Lightyear minifigure, his head was a very custom molded piece to look like Buzz from the movie. The 2016 version changed it to be a normal Lego minifigure head. Now, Jesse and Woody additionally also had, and Stinky Pete, lots of these, kind of humanoid Toy Story characters had very custom molded heads. Jesse and Woody actually had long arms and long legs, in addition to their heads being very specially molded. Very cool figures. They looked really good, and they looked a lot like the characters from the movies, while also still having that Lego figure flair. With the collectible minifigure series, Lego decided that all the quote-unquote humanoid characters were going to have realistic human-style heads. I get the decision. It makes sense to me to an extent, but it just doesn't look as good. Buzz's head, I think, looked better as a custom mold rather than this humanoid style, and all the non-humanoid characters like the Alien and some of these characters from Toy Story 4 that I'm about to mention here in just a minute, they still retained having the specially molded head. So it's kind of weird to me. I think it was a odd, slightly misguided decision, but it's a decision that carried over to the Toy Story 4 sets 3 years after the CMF series in 2019. So Lego made 6 sets this past year based off of Toy Story 4. One of them wasn't really based off Toy Story 4, but 5 of them were very specifically based off Toy Story 4. And these sets, to the chagrin of a lot of Lego fans, were now under the 4+, aka Juniors moniker, which means the sets had very simple designs and few pieces, bigger pieces, very easy to build, and the designs just don't look as good. And it's a letdown, in my opinion. I don't understand why themes like Trolls World Tour and Minions in 2020 get sets that are, the more normal system style, while Toy Story, which I think is a way bigger, more popular franchise, a more meaningful franchise, gets 0 sets. I understand if they want to make some sets Juniors themed, but all 6 of them, every single Toy Story 4 set, was Junior's themed, which I think is very disappointing, and the designs just don't look as good. Now, luckily the figures are still great. It's not like the Jack Stone sets, which we will do an episode about Jack Stone here in the future, where the figures just didn't fit in. The figures were still great, but the sets looked a little bit awkward. Now, the smallest set was the Woody and RC set, which is a remake of the 2010 set. And this set was actually half the price. It was $10, and it's a good deal for $10. Woody minifigure is great, had a very nice piece count of 69, and it had micro figures of the Green Army Men. They were micro, so they were actually to scale with the Woody minifig. I love that. That's great. RC looks like crap. Some good printed pieces, but RC looks like crap. RC just doesn't look nearly as good as the original version. It didn't have the fun pullback motor feature either. So definitely a letdown. And this was not actually really based off the new film. RC does appear in the new film, but I would say that this is more so based off of Toy Story 1 or 2, not the new film, but still a good little small set, but definitely a step down from the 2010 version. Now, the rest of the 5 sets were specifically based off of scenes in Toy Story 4. We had the $20 Duke Kaboom's Stunt Show, which came with the Duke Kaboom figure. This is the only other set from this line that I purchased. I got it on sale on Amazon, I think, for like $10, and it comes with Duke Kaboom, Duke Kaboom, who is a stuntman, a Canadian stuntman, voiced by the Keanu Reeves. I think this is the only set ever to have a minifigure of Keanu Reeves. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the only LEGO character that he has ever gotten before. And Duke Kaboom was absolutely hilarious in the movie, one of my favorite parts of the movie. I'm going to mention that my favorite parts of Toy Story 4 as a film were all the funny side characters, Duke Kaboom being one of the highlights. This set also had a very cool burning ring of fire, and it's a very cool piece. It's similar to something that Chima made, I think in like 2014, for one of their Speedor sets. Cool set, builds not super complicated. The Woody minifigure came in the cheaper set, so I have 2 of that Woody minifigure that did have the, more realistic Lego minifigure head as opposed to the longer head and the specialized arm pieces, but did still have a specialized hair hat combo. But cool set, cool little build, actually looks pretty good even though it's still Junior's build, and that Duke Kaboom minifigure is fantastic. Next up we have Buzz and Bo Peep's Playground Adventure. Pretty average playground build, but it is the only set that came with Gabby Gabby, who was like kind of the villain of Toy Story 4. Not a full-fledged villain, but definitely a villain in certain regards. This is also the first time we ever got a Bo Peep minifigure. Bo Peep kind of famously, or infamously is probably a better word to describe it, was not in Toy Story 3, and then in Toy Story 4 they kind of like retconned that and made a reason to why she wasn't in Toy Story 3, which I found kind of interesting. But Bo Peep is a great character, and it was great to see Bo Peep in this set. It's also the cheapest set that we ever got her. I didn't get this set. If I find it on clearance or something, I might pick it up, but for now I did not get it. But you do get a skunk car, which is a kind of funny little component of Toy Story 4. The next set we'll talk about here was called the RV Vacation, and it includes, of course, the RV build, which the RV build does still have that very junior-ish design, but it's not half bad. The playability was pretty good. The minifigures, you had Jessie with a new hair hat combo. You also had the return of the Rex minifigure. That's a great character, and this set also had an alien, which are always good to get, but most importantly, it's the only Toy Story 4 set to include Forky, and Forky was one of the more iconic, fun characters from Toy Story 4. Love Forky. He's a fun little micro-style minifigure. And finally, the last 2 Toy Story 4 sets were based off of the kind of carnival aspect of the film. There's a big, component of the movie that is at a carnival. So we had the Carnival Thrill Coaster, a $20 set that kind of sucks. A very flat and boring roller coaster. It looks like one of those very kiddie roller coasters that you wouldn't ride on at a theme park, and there were no exclusive figures. You just got Buzz and an alien. Great characters, but not exclusive, so definitely not a very good set. One of the weakest and probably honestly the worst Toy Story set LEGO has ever produced. And then finally we had Buzz and Woody's Carnival Mania, the biggest set from this line. It was $50 and it had a lot of theme park rides, including a pretty cool octopus spinning ride, a shooting game, some really fun stuff. And this set's the only set ever to come with the Ducky and Bunny figures. Those characters were voiced respectively by Key and Peele, the iconic comedy duo. Those characters stole the movie. They were absolutely hysterical, and their scene during the credits of Toy Story 4 literally killed me. Like, one of the funniest scenes in any Toy Story or Pixar movie ever. Like, I'm not even joking. You know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movie. I won't spoil it for you, but their scene in the credits was hysterical. So those are all the Toy Story 4 sets, and that's all the Toy Story sets in general. Over the years, LEGO has made a total of 22 Toy Story sets based off all 4 movies and a couple of expanded universe materials. So that's LEGO Toy Story. It's a pretty fun history. It's definitely interesting, and I'm really glad that LEGO made these sets, even though I think they could have done a little bit more with it, and I definitely wish that the Toy Story 4 stuff wasn't, of course, themed with, under the Juniors 4+ moniker. But thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Brickology. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me how I can improve. You're watching on YouTube, send me a comment. If you're on Instagram, whatever, shoot me a message. If you're on Spotify, find me on social medias. Tell me how I did, and share this podcast with all your friends. We got over 200 streams this week, which was really exciting. I'm really hyped about that, but I hope to get even more in the future. I'm really happy with how Brickology is doing thus far, and I think there's tons of room for improvement. So thank you guys so much for listening to Brickology. Go like my Facebook page, follow me on Instagram, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter as well, and maybe if you really love LEGO Lee and Brickology, check out my Patreon account. It's LEGO Lee 329 on Patreon. If you check me out over there, you can actually donate any small amount, like literally $1 a month from Patreon, would help me create super fun and cool content like the Brickology podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll see you guys in a couple weeks for the next episode of Brickology. This is LEGO Lee 329 signing out. Peace out. Bye-bye.